You need to listen very carefully to what is happening right now because something massive is unfolding on the XRP ledger and almost nobody is talking about it. This moment is one of those situations where 6 months from now, people will claim they saw it coming, but you and I both know that we are catching this before the entire herd wakes up. What is moving behind the scenes on the XRP ledger is not normal in any way. We are seeing institutional level activity firing off rapidly, almost like a machine that has suddenly come online. At the same time, ETFs are launching, macro catalysts are lining up with the intensity of a final boss stage in a bull market, and all of these signals connect directly back to XRP. And it all begins with XRPrightnow.com, the one source that delivers nonstop Ripple and XRP coverage, including the ETF tracker, where I have major updates coming this week. But before that, we have to break down this article titled XRP Network Sees a Surge in Unusual Activity because what it reveals triggered an immediate alarm bell the moment I saw it. Someone, and I'm not talking about retail traders or bored whales, I'm talking about a serious institutional player with real influence, has been blasting the XRP ledger with account set transactions, and the volume of these actions is not small. It is staggering. This is not a drill. This is a different category of activity entirely. What makes it even wilder is the fact that this is happening even though BitGo has already stopped their own configuration wave. That means this is not leftover noise, not a backlog, and not some random automated script accidentally looping in the background. This is a completely new entity with a new pattern, new timing, and a new cluster of synchronized activity. When movements like this begin to appear, institutions do not step out and announce what they are doing. Instead, they configure quietly, they prepare silently, they build the back end long before any major move becomes public. And right now, the XRP ledger is practically screaming that something big is being set up beneath the surface. To make sense of why this is important, especially if you're new and not familiar with what account set transactions really represent, I'll break it down in a way that matters. Account set transactions are not normal user actions. They are not payments, not trades, and not swaps. These transactions represent configuration updates, things like enabling multi-signature control, rotating cold and hot wallet keys, activating specific account flags, adding domain metadata, and setting advanced account controls. This is not casual user behavior. This is infrastructure work, the type that custodians, exchanges, institutional liquidity providers, and asset managers perform when they are preparing clusters of wallets in advance. BitGo did this exact type of configuration not too long ago, but what we are seeing now is a completely different pattern with entirely different timing and signatures. That means a new institutional player is setting up shop. Wallets do not get prepared unless they are anticipating flow, incoming movement, custodial demand, or large-scale infrastructure needs. This is the early signal before something major arrives. When we turn to the data, Grok breaks this down even further by analyzing the BitGo situation that occurred earlier. Between November 7th and November 12th, there was a massive spike in account set transactions on the XRP ledger. BitGo's initialization wallet, which is responsible for activating new XRP wallets, including one associated with Evernote, entered a faulty automation loop. That script was designed to create and configure new accounts in bulk, but it malfunctioned temporarily. While everything resolved cleanly and BitGo confirmed that no funds were lost, the volume was shocking. Every 8 to 12 minutes, new accounts were being activated, over 14,800 on peak days like November 11th. This spike was connected to BitGo's multi-signature setup and institutional infrastructure preparations, which is common for custodians dealing with institutional clients. But the new spike we are analyzing now is different. The current patterns show tens of thousands of account-level configuration transactions happening across institutional-grade wallets, involving multi-signature activation, key rotations, flag toggles for payment preferences, and domain updates. This is not retail behavior. This is not something a random trader wakes up and decides to do. This is a deliberate institutional setup by a large entity, either an enterprise custodian, an institutional liquidity provider, an asset manager preparing for inflows, or possibly the back-end preparation for a new ETF filing. Something significant is being set in motion right now, and all signs point in the same direction. While we're discussing institutional activity, we have to address the major headline that almost feels unreal. By the time you watch this video, the 21 shares XRP ETF will be live. This is not a futures ETF, not a synthetic exposure, but a real regulated spot ETF that has been approved, filed, and launched. This type of catalyst forces traditional finance to acknowledge XRP not as a retail speculation asset, but as a legitimate institutional-grade digital instrument. ETFs do not buy like retail. They do not FOMO in with a few $100s at a time. They move in millions. Current active crypto ETFs are already generating around $45 million per day in inflows. Adding even one new XRP spot ETF, even at a conservative $5 million per day, pushes total daily institutional demand to around $50 million, draining market supply. As OTC supply shrinks and custodial requirements increase, market supply tightens dramatically. This is how new chapters in an asset's evolution begin. 21 shares made it clear that they did not create the XRP ETF merely because they wanted to. They launched it because their clients demanded it, and their clients are not average traders. They are family offices, private banks, independent asset managers, and pension funds, institutions that do not want to deal with private keys or the complexity of digital custody. These investors want a clean, regulated method to gain exposure, and ETFs provide precisely that. Europe took over 5 years to reach $3 billion in crypto ETF inflows, while the United States reached that same number in just 3 months. The US remains the largest capital market in the world, and the magnitude of demand coming from institutional clients is now unmistakable. Institutions do not position themselves based on narratives or hype. They move based on demand, regulatory clarity, macro trends, and infrastructure readiness. They are demanding XRP exposure now because they see the regulatory landscape stabilizing, they see macro catalysts forming, they see wallet infrastructure being built on chain, and they recognize the potential upside. They position early, quietly, and strategically, just like what we are seeing now. Zooming out into the macro landscape, things become even more interesting. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently hinted that the president may deliver a major pre-Christmas announcement, stating that there is a strong chance the announcement will come before the holidays. Markets are not priced in for any major policy shift. If this announcement includes bullish signals such as rate cut indications, a policy pivot, economic realignment, or even liquidity injections, any one of those catalysts is powerful enough to ignite risk assets. Combined, they become explosive. December could be much bigger than anyone expects, and crypto markets are already reacting ahead of time. To put this into perspective, the last time the Federal Reserve ended quantitative tightening in 2019, Bitcoin performed a 7 times move. The Fed stopped shrinking its balance sheet at 3.8 trillion, and a few months later, QE restarted with 3.2 trillion, flooding the system over 18 months. Bitcoin rose from $3,800 to $29,000. That rise was not hype, it was liquidity mechanics. And tomorrow, QT ends again. That means QE is on deck. Liquidity injections of this scale almost always drive crypto higher because the math simply does not work any other way.